Imagine you are standing on a sunlit street in Lisbon, holding a €2 coffee in your hand, surrounded by old, beautiful buildings. You feel like you are in paradise, a European dream that has come true. But as soon as you lower your camera slightly, you see the face of the barista who handed you that coffee. His salary is only €870 per month, and he is forced to live in a dark room hours away from the city because the house he grew up in was bought by a foreign company and turned into a luxury hotel. This is the reality of Portugal that is hidden in the advertisements shown to the world. What we consider an economic miracle is actually a deepening crisis. The story of Portugal begins in 2011, when the country was on the verge of complete bankruptcy. The debt was so massive that it had to take a bailout of €78 billion. At that time, the government needed money and needed it very quickly. They introduced a scheme that attracted wealthy people from around the world, the Golden Visa. The rule was simple: buy a house in Portugal and get access to Europe. Soon, more than €7 billion of investment flowed into the country. Old buildings started shining, new hotels were built, and the balance sheet improved. But behind this glitter, a very large trap was being woven. When you open the floodgates of global wealth into a small market, land becomes out of reach for ordinary people. Since 2015, housing prices in Lisbon have increased by up to 190%. On one hand, an engineer from San Francisco is happy to pay €1,500 in rent because it is cheap for him. But for a Portuguese nurse or teacher, that rent is more than their entire monthly salary. Local people are being pushed out of their own cities. Houses under €200,000 have almost disappeared from the market. This is not a coincidence. It is the result of a deliberate economic structure that has made its own citizens homeless. The truth is even more bitter. Think about a 24-year-old who has earned an engineering degree from Lisbon's top university. He is capable, knows coding, and wants to change the world. But when he sits for his first job interview, the offer he receives is only €1,150. After taxes, he gets just €900. A room on the outskirts of Lisbon costs €550, and food expenses are €250. By the end of the month, that engineer is left with nothing. The value of his degree is no more than that of a teenager working at McDonald's. This is Portugal's greatest tragedy, losing its brightest youth. Today, every third young person born in Portugal has left the country. They are fleeing to Germany, Switzerland, and the Netherlands, where they earn 5 times more for the same work. The Portuguese government spends millions educating these children, turning them into doctors and engineers, and then exports them for free to richer countries. What remains is an aging society and workers whose salaries have barely changed in the last 10 years. The government claims it has increased the minimum wage, but the reality is that the gap between a senior manager and a cleaner has become very small. This system has killed ambition, but where is all the money going? Why can Portugal not pay its people better? The answer lies in its tourism addiction. Portugal has turned itself into a giant luxury hotel. When a country runs only on hotels, restaurants, and coffee shops, there is a limit to its growth. No matter how hard a waiter works, he cannot create as much value as a software engineer. Portugal's productivity is among the lowest in Europe. Investment is not going into factories or new technology, but into converting old houses into Airbnb rentals. This is a path that looks beautiful on the surface, but is hollowing the country from within. The most frightening face of this economic hollowing appears when you fall sick. Imagine it is Saturday night. You have severe stomach pain, and you rush to the hospital, only to find a notice on the door. Emergency ward closed due to staff shortage. This is not fiction. It is the current reality of Portugal's hospitals. The doctors who remain are paid so little that they are either moving to private hospitals or leaving the country. Portugal's middle class is now paying a double tax. They pay heavy taxes for public health care, and then also pay for private insurance to actually receive treatment. Despite all these crises, Portugal's official statistics appear very bright. The government proudly says its budget is in surplus and debt is decreasing. But how did this happen? Was there a miracle? No. It is the result of inflation and taxation. When prices rise, the VAT collected by the government also increases. People's pockets are emptying, but the government's treasury is filling up. This is called fiscal drag, where even a small increase in your salary pushes you into a higher tax bracket, making you effectively poorer. The government has paid its credit card bill by feeding its citizens ramen, Now this anger is visible on the streets and in politics. A country that remained calm for decades is now becoming a center of political upheaval. People are fed up with traditional parties that only showed them sweet dreams. The rise of the new far-right party, Chega, in the 2024 elections is a result of this economic anger. The youth want change because they have nothing left to lose. What will Portugal look like in the future? If this continues, Portugal will become the Venice of Europe, a beautiful museum where wealthy foreigners come for vacations, but no locals remain. There will be luxury cafes and empty streets where local children no longer play football. Portugal today is a warning for the entire world. It is an example of what happens when a government turns homes into commodities, burdens entrepreneurs with taxes, and ignores the potential of its youth. The next time you see Portugal's golden streets in an advertisement, look at the cracks behind those shining walls. Because a glossy balance sheet can never compensate for a collapsing society. This illusion of paradise is built on the sweat and blood of ordinary people, who are now slowly suffocating